We already have that. We have that, right?
I never do, yeah.
Okay, good evening, everybody. It is 7 o'clock, so I'm gonna call the July 10th, 2024 regular council meeting to order. Would you please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Sherry, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Emmerman?
Here.
Mr. Fish?
Here.
Mr. Yankee?
Here.
Mr. Richmond?
Here.
Mr. Vincent?
Here. Okay, thank you. Next up is reading and disposal of the journal. They haven't had a chance to look at the minutes, and does anyone have any comments or changes?
One quick one, Mayor. Page 3, at the top of the page, under ordinance 17. It says, Mr. Richmond, that the planning commission states that, yeah, Mr. Richmond stated that the.
Thank you, Mr. Richmond. Thank you for that. Anybody else have any? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve as amended. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by approving minutes by Council President Young, seconded by Councilman Vincent. Please call the chair.
Mr. Emmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Fish?
Yes.
Mr. Yankee?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Okay, as usual on our agenda tonight, we have action upon any matter which any resident may wish to present to council. I don't see any residents in the audience or online. Anything, Chair? No? Okay, so then I will move on to reports and communications from the mayor and other municipal officials, and I do have a few things to share with everybody. First is, I think we talked about last week having the students here for their archaeological camp. And they did show up on Monday. I had the opportunity to address them and talk to them a little bit about the history of this place and everything. And they were some eager and interesting children, very enthusiastic teachers. And so they've been here all week. The service department and Ted has been making sure they have fresh water and I think a few other things as well, tables and some other things for their activities. So, you know, if you happen to be around here during the day, you will see them. You kind of see there's trash out. There was a trash bin and there's a water cooler there. So yeah, I think it's a really nice educational thing. I don't know what they found yet, so I'll report it to you next time. Haven't heard the details of that yet, but they are here. Couple other things. I just received this week copy of the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District report from 2023, the annual report that talks about residential recycling. And you guys are obviously welcome to review this or borrow it. We've got a couple copies here. Did you guys get it too? Oh, okay, good. Okay, I didn't know how many this came on, but I just point out in there that that 19% of our waste is recycled according to this report, and that's based upon Mr. DeWater's reporting of the different tonnages to the county, and that we're third of all communities in terms of that percentage in the county. With Chagrin Falls Township being number one at 22%, Hunting Valley being number two at 20%, and us being at 19%. You know, if you look at the other percentages in there, as you know, we don't have leaf collection at curbside. So some of the communities that do have that have a larger percentage of composting and recycling. So that would make the difference there. But we still actually have a decent amount. I'm surprised that the percentage is as high as it is just for primarily for what we do around the village as a service department and then our leaf bagging, right?
And hazard trees.
And the hazard trees, okay. So anyway, I think it looks good for us. I'll just like to point that out to you. third, I had a meeting yesterday with Chagrin Valley Dispatch. It was the COG for the CBD. And I discussed it with our chief earlier today. They're proposing a new method for allocating costs to all their members. The bottom line for Moreland Hills is it actually makes our costs go down by about $21,000. It was not adopted. It was tabled at the meeting because there are some communities that don't like it because it's making their costs go up. The finance department at CBD feels very confident. They've been working on this for 2 years, and their new methodology, which I won't go into the details tonight. If you want to know about it, there's a lot of details, but their new methodology is more reflective of the costs that are being driven. So they believe the old methods, some people are underpaying, some people are overpaying. Because it was tabled, there are going to be a couple more meetings about this that the mayors will go to. I've asked the chief if he can join to come to them as well with me. I'm trying to get educated more on just the whole operation, but frankly, I think in the end it may get adopted. We'll see, and I don't see our costs going up. I don't, but I will keep you guys informed on that. So I wanted you to be aware of that. Another thing, so a number of us have received emails. You may or may not have gotten this. So if you haven't, someone will be reaching out to you. There's a new state requirement for all state employees, and that includes municipal employees, to take fraud prevention training. And so you'll be getting something on this where you click on a link and you watch a training video for 8 minutes. And then Marshall will need to collect the fact that we can document for auditing purposes that everyone's taken it. I took it this afternoon. There's no test, but just listen to it. I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it was pretty simple, and it's just talking about fraud, waste, and abuse, and some examples of those things, and what to do if you see that, and how to report it, and that type of stuff. So it's just a new state requirement. Heads up on that will be coming. I think that it's due by the end of September, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's sometime in September. So it's not a rush, but it'll take 8 minutes. So you can just, when you get a chance.
Where did you say we find that link?
You should be getting something from us with the link.
Yeah.
It came from the Ohio Municipal League. So if you do get emails from them, and our auditor's name is, I think it's Keith Faber, Auditor of State. It comes from his office. So you can even Google that if you want to go see it tonight. You can get it.
The OML email is July 1st. If you get those and you save them, that have that link in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I saw it differently.
Oh, there was another one.
I was trying to miss.
Yes, it's a different one.
It's a different one.
Yeah, it's funny because we don't get much from that. Yeah, but then we get a couple things. So I wanted to make you aware of that. And then you may have seen in the news, I'm not going to go into details. I'm asked Prashant to give a summary of this, but you may have seen in the news that the property valuations from the county are coming out, and you may get calls or questions. So rather than me talk about it, Prashant knows a lot more. So when his report comes, I've asked him to do a quick summary of that process for us. And then lastly, on Friday at 7 p.m., Blue Cadillac is going to be playing at the Pavilion. Just a reminder, if you want to come out, it's free, of course, and bring out a lawn chair and some snacks and enjoy some music. I think the weather's supposed to be good, so I'm planning on going. So if you guys can make it, or let your neighbors know if you're talking around town. I went to an art thing earlier today, an art exhibit from Diane Farr, who's a resident here in Moreland Hills, and she knew about it. She said she was coming. I was like, all right. She reads stuff and she knows. So.
It's Friday?
That's Friday at 7 p.m. Yes. And that's all I've got this evening, unless you guys have questions. Questions? Okay, so let me move on to our department heads. So let's start with their chief, Chief Diesel, do you have a report this evening?
Only thing I had to add is after our safety meetings that we received some prices for the signage.
Okay.
Fire department, the police department that I'm working on with Mayor Spencer and Ted DeWater. That's all.
Okay, I'm excited to get some refreshes on this.
Yes.
I think that'll be great. Thank you. Next would be, Mr. DeWater, our service report this evening.
Keeping it brief and simple, we got the recycling truck back yesterday after 2 weeks of breakdown. They had to repair the compaction blade in it, and the result of that is just crushed glass, metal, ground down the roller wheels in it. So it is repaired and back on the road, and everything's back on.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Mr. DeWater. Next up is our engineer report. Mr. Pilarski, do you have a report this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The only thing I want to report on is the asphalt program is beginning this coming Monday and will be finished in the middle of August. And this year, our contractor, as you know, is Barbicus Paving. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Pilarski? Let's see, that next up would be finance report. Mr. Shaw, you would report at least, please fill us in on the property valuations and anything else you have.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. So yeah, the property values, the increase in those are probably news that you see every day on every channel nowadays. Overall, the county went up 32%, all communities included. Moreland Hills is 28%. We did get some calls in the finance department about it. This is very early for the county to come out with this kind of information. In the past, it's always been, closer to the end of the year, and the only opportunity people had to contest the valuation would be through the Board of Review between January 1 and March 31st. But now they're coming out, they're sending out the letters. I'm sure, some residents have received it, which is why we got the calls. And they have an opportunity to go to the county if they feel that the valuation is higher than it should be. But there's certain caveats. They need to have some proof of why they're contesting it. Maybe a recent appraisal report, or if they had refinanced it, something that the bank may have given them as far as the valuation. If they have multiple repairs that they're looking to do, maybe they can document that and bring it to the county, and they would consider that as well. But it is, as they said, it was pretty shocking. I mean, they came up with a large valuation increase in about 6 years ago, actually, 2018, when they had that 6-year valuation that they're required to do by state. Every 3 years, they have to do an update. So it's not a dramatic increase in those 3-year valuations, but the sexennial valuation, which this is, I have not seen 2 major increases like this in property values so close together. But I guess they're trying to keep up with market values of the properties. That's what they're going for. And in the past, if you all recall, county valuation was always 10, 20, 30% lower than market values. But they're just trying to keep up with the market values and increase property revenues for property tax revenues for schools and the county and everybody else who receives them. So a lot more to come. This is just all new. They haven't come out with all the reports, the detailed reports. What's the commercial increase? What's the residential increase? What's the industrial property valuation increase? All that is still coming out. So I'm sure we'll hear more in the next month or two. And Mayor, you mentioned the training on fraud. You're correct. It's a very simple video to watch. It's literally 7 minutes, and everything that they're going to say in the video, you all know. So all you have to do is watch it and then print out your certificate or email it to us, and we'll keep track of that for next year's audit. Speaking about audits, the good news is that our audit is complete and one more year of a clean audit we received from the auditor. So all is good. And finally, RETA revenues continue to stay up. We are about 18% higher than last year, so that's about $500,000 more in revenues compared to 2023. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, and Prashant, how are you seeing the interest rates on Star Ohio? Are they still up or are they starting to come back down now yet? Or what's happening there? Because I know we were getting some good interest income.
Right, and so that's the other revenue stream that has continued to stay up, and it hasn't changed. You know, as you know, Star Ohio is a money market fund, and their average maturity is about 90 days. So even if the interest rates start going down tomorrow, if the Feds go down, it'll take maybe a month or two for Star Ohio to catch up. So right now they're still about 5.5% overnight yield.
Okay, outstanding. All right, thank you, Mr. Shaw. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Let's move on to the building department, Mr. Kowalski. Do you have a report this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just
Also,
to bring
sorry.
everybody up to speed, we have a lot of activity going on over at the schools. Brady Middle School, they're doing a re-roofing project on most of the buildings, so that's been going on for the last month. And then over at the Orange High School, last year on the main level of the high school, they actually redid all the corridor walls and classroom upgrades. This year, they're actually doing the second floor. All the corridor walls are being redone to be fire rated corridor walls, as well as classroom upgrades. And they're putting a new stair tower and elevator tower on the back of the building to get greater accessibility between all the floors. So a lot of activity going on over at the schools.
Mr. Kowalski, thank you. Any questions there? Okay, I appreciate that. And then lastly, but not least, our law report. Mr. Hanlon, do you have a report this evening?
I don't, Your Honor, Mayor, but other than to mention that you're going to have a piece of legislation tonight that council will consider authorizing you to execute a release agreement for the opioid settlement in the Kroger pharmacy matter. And we've had some discussion at different times about how much that might come to. And I can tell you that these long numbers over here on my screen are the percentages of different communities' participation, and Moreland Hills is 0.0000324, et cetera, percent of the 1.2 billion.
Can I ask you a question about that? You, at the committee of the whole meeting, you said that Walgreens was part of this. Just want to confirm if that's the case or not, because my wife works for Walgreens, so I could step out. You said Kroger before we entered Walgreens, so I wasn't sure if this was.
I don't think Walgreens is.
I may have misspoken. I know Walgreens was one of them.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah, Walgreens is listed.
So I'm gonna step out, I'll step out real quick here and add
So,
It's listed as one of the participating entities or release parties.
I'll just step out to be safe.
Okay.
okay. No problem. I had thought, I read it, so it does have, I thought mine was on too.
Bill, did you do the math? I
did, my phone calculator doesn't get to billions.
Is it $420?
You gotta turn signals. It's something very small like that.
Yeah, I mean, is it, did you say that number that you read out was also a percent number?
I believe it is.
Oh, okay. So it's either $420 or
Yeah.
$400. You know, either way, it's like.
It's not much. It's not much. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Hannah? Okay, all right, that will conclude the reports and communications from our officials. Let's see here. Appointments and confirmations, none this evening. Communications, petitions, and claims, we have none this evening. So that will lead us to reports of committees. We have a number of committees to report out this evening. The first one will be BZA and planning that met on July 1st. Mr. Rich.
Thank you, Mayor. The Can get that, actually, we can do that later, you know, I had the, Green Commission and the diversity report keyed up. And I was remiss and.
We can cycle back, Mr. Richmond, I have no problem with that, so, give me a sign when you think you're ready, and I'll move on to facilities.
Great, thank you.
I know Miss Irish Glass is not here this evening, but she did provide some minutes, so I know there's some business to attend to there. I'm gonna hand it over to Mr. Yonke.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend, so I will let the minutes stand for themselves. I do have a motion to make, which I will do at this time. So I'd like to make a motion to allow the village engineer to develop specifications, solicit informal quotes, and advertise bids for the Jackson Valley Woodland Glen Pump Station commuter, which is a shredder, fancy word for shredder. With that, we don't suspend the rules, just call the roll, right? Second.
That's correct, unless there's questions about that, I can mention, I know I was at the meeting, so it's a fancy word for sure, and it's because of the wipes and other things that are continuing to go into this pump station to protect it, so.
Good, Mayor, when you get,
Okay.
get back to that, thank you.
I believe we had a motion presented by Council President, seconded by Mr. Vincent, so I think we can call the roll, Sherry.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mr. Yonke,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Okay, circling back to BZA and planning, Mr. Richmond.
Thank you, Mayor. So the BZA met on July 1st, and we had just two items on our agenda. The first was reviewing and approving the findings of fact for the height and percent openness variance that we had granted the previous meeting at the 40 South Lane. BZA also approved a 7-foot side setback requirement for an addition at 85 Willowwood Lane. And at the planning meeting, we had 3 items. We approved the addition for 85 Willowwood Lane that the BZA commission had granted the variance for. We also approved a pool house at 10 Addison Lane. And we also approved an addition / renovation at 4425 Giles Road. And I would just add that on the additions, there were impressed by how the owners, as well as their reviewing architect, worked together. And our reviewing architect had come up with a couple of items of concern. They discussed actually prior to the meeting and then revised the plans in time for the approval at the meeting. So it's just a good example of the process working well together.
Great, thank you, Mr. Appreciate that. I will next move to roads and safety, July 2nd meeting, Mr. Vincent.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very briefly, I'll let the minutes stand for most details. Mention a couple of things. One is Chief is making good progress going through the Lexipol policies, and he reported out on that. There are 5 tiers of them. He's made it through tier 1, which is the most high liability, low frequency policies. And so that process is moving along, and we'll get some good outcomes out of that. I wanted to mention that the other thing was the incident that happened on North Strawberry. We talked about maybe the whole, if the chief can, do a debrief with council members. I think most expressed interest. Mr. Emmerman and I both did, and I believe others had. So I just wanted to highlight that. And the last thing I wanted to mention was that reviewing the facilities minutes the other day, I wanted to just their organization on the survey results and put that on the record that we I was very impressed with the way that, that committee organized the survey results, mostly because that was something I was gonna try to do and I failed in doing it. So I wanted to make sure that the record showed that the facility did a good job of that. I think it's a nice way to keep track of all of that, and I just want to put that back on the to-do list, so to speak. So that was it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vince. Any questions? Okay, appreciate it. Now Parks Commission, I'm over here talking with Sherry because we did not have a most recent meeting because there was not a quorum to have the meeting. But there was a meeting the prior month, and I don't believe there's been a report on that. If Mr.
Parks, we did not.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
we did
right,
not
I'm sorry.
move Parks, so I don't think
We don't have an update.
we don't have an update on this.
Yeah,
That's right. I just wanted to confirm that because I remember we did not have a quorum, so we did not meet. And then Green Commission did meet. I was at that meeting. Mr. Richmond also got the minutes and has offered to give a quick summary of that one as well. Thank you, Mr. Richmond.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Shane Sharp, the chair, did provide me with some draft, not ready for publication yet minutes, but I'm gonna use those to give a quick summary, and certainly if I missed anything, Mayor, certainly feel free to add. So at the highlights of the meeting was, first of all, we traditionally have an update from the mayor, who updated everyone about the Tree City application, and also reminded everyone in the commission that there are 3 openings to be filled on the Green Commission. So far, there are 4 applicants, but if there's anybody on council that could think of anyone that would have an interest, certainly let them know and let the mayor know. And that way you can get a good pool of those that might have an interest in serving on the Green Commission. Also at the meeting, the chair of the commission called for all members to come to the next meeting in September with ideas for potential fundraising, potential composting at Rust Belt Riders was also discussed, and it was agreed that they would look into it further. The initial thoughts from a prior meeting was that it might be difficult to have room here at on Village Hall campus to have a composting bin here, but still might be possible to get a negotiated rate for Rust Belt to come out to interested folks who are interested. There might be a minimum a number of folks that you need to subscribe, but those are things that the commission is going to look into. Also, Green Commission is going to look into possibly adding something to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusive Belonging Commission's welcome basket, so that they're working on. And finally, one of the members, Judy Newger, mentioned Shaker Heights' activity on a couple of city-owned properties that were vacant and lended themselves well to a reduced mowing pollinator type garden. And there was additional discussion and to be further discussion on whether we would have any similar properties that would also be in Moreland Hills that would be candidates for that type of program. That is what I have for the Green Commission there.
Thank you, Mr. Richmond. Any questions for?
Just a thought to pass back to the Green Commission is with regard to Rust Belt Riders, I'm wondering if a good spot would be at the pavilion, and then maybe not the pavilion itself, but somewhere in that parking lot. I've seen their bins before. They're pretty low profile, and then they give residents who sign up a code, and then you go and you open it, dump your food scraps in, you close it, and then they come pick it up. So I think, yeah, it might not make sense at the village hall, but if it's down at the pavilion in an area that makes sense, I think it could be pretty low burden. But you probably want to run that with the Parks Commission as well. Just a thought to pass back.
Not good thought.
I agree with that thought, and, they're basically recycle bins, like that we have on our own, right, that with a wire, with a lock with the code. We participate, we get to take ours to that church on, Shaker Boulevard, it's the closest one that I know of, that when I take it to work, so I'll take it to work with me and then have to do it on work. Luckily I have a truck, so I don't mind the bucket being in the back, but a closer thing would be most likely.
Yeah, I understand. They also want to, look into, the use for people who don't subscribe, but what you just mentioned, makes sense to me. And also, potential pitfall of people leaving, rotting stuff that maybe doesn't necessarily belong there. But, I certainly think a conversation with Rust Belt Riders and how other areas that they have stuff, how they overcome those, is in order, and I like the idea. We'll bring it to the next Green Commission of that as a possibility. Maybe Ted and or Mayor maybe think, brainstorm as far as any good or bad thoughts were that regarding why that wouldn't work out as a possibility there. And maybe then we can all, at the next September meeting at Green, discuss all of those things. That would be good. Thank you.
Sure. Else on green. And then lastly is diversity and inclusion, met on June 18th, and Mr. Richmond, if you could give a brief update on that as well. I know I'm
Yes.
burdening you with a lot of updates tonight.
No, not a problem. I was also able to get in touch with Lori, who actually was on vacation and didn't have minutes as of yet, but also I was able to provide me with a summary, and they're very engaged and working on a lot of things, but I will try and briefly summarize. They talked at their meeting regarding the upcoming book club event, August 26th, 6:30, Orange Library, focusing on Japanese Americans who experienced internment during World War II, particularly the book by George Takei, They Call Us Enemy, and a book by another author that was at a different internment camp. They also talked about positive experiences a couple of members had marching with their families in Cleveland Pride Parade, and the potential in the future to maybe march with other diversity, equity, inclusion commissions in neighboring communities. They also elected Todd Steele, who was the vice chair, to be the treasurer with the cookbook project and receiving donations and other financial related things. It's important to have a treasurer for the commission. They're working on, I think they finished the marketing flyer and other social media and advertising for the cookbook project. Their American Sign Language More in the Hills event was originally scheduled for tomorrow, had to be postponed due to the presenter availability. They did mention that they do appreciate council and the mayor's giving time to be able for them to share their updates, as well as their space in the newsletter and their email addresses. They're all very appreciative of that. They're working also on the Welcome Baskets project. They're also working on the September 14th We Are Moreland Hills event, similar to the one that they had last year at the Pavilion. And lastly, they publicly expressed gratitude to for Safi Melly's leadership in the term that she served on the commission. That would be my report there.
Thank you, Mr. Richmond. Appreciate that. That concludes reports of committees and commissions. So next up is approval of bonds, contracts, and plats, which we haven't done this evening. So I'm gonna move on to ordinances. We don't have ordinances and resolutions. We have only 3 ordinances this evening. The first one is ordinance 2024-31. An ordinance authorizing change order number 1 with Roniak paving for the Jackson Road Chagrin River resurfacing project from last year and declaring an emergency. That was assigned to Mr. Vincent.
Thank you, Mayor. That's correct. It's basically a final adjusting change order for this work, the amount of a decrease of $85,456.28. Looking over the sheet that the engineer provided, it appears to be largely items that were not performed. Jeff, you can chime in if I'm missing anything, but a bunch of catch basins and manholes adjustments that weren't performed, some repairs that weren't performed, or presumably not needed. So anything to add, Jeff? I don't want to steal your thunder there, but.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Yeah, there were just some non-performing items as usual. Some were slightly above, but the result is the negative 85,000 and change. One thing I did want to mention though on this project, if you recall, we did get quite a bit of outside funding for this, to the tune of about $496,000 coming from ARPA funds through the county, OPWC, and then a small reimbursement from Bentleyville for a section of road within Bentleyville.
Perfect. Yes, thank you for mentioning that.
You're
So
welcome.
with that, I'd make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second. And we have a motion to suspend the rules, Mr. Vincent, second by Mr. Young.
Mr. Everman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes. Okay, motion for passage.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion passes by Mr. Vincent, second by Mr. Fish.
Mr. Everman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Our next ordinance this evening is 2024-32. An ordinance providing additional appropriations, transferring items already appropriated, and declaring an emergency, and that was assigned to Mr. Richmond.
Thank you, Mayor. I spent numerous seconds with Mr. Shaw discussing the ordinance and the many transfers involved. And this particular transfer is to transfer $30,000 from the general fund to the police pension fund, which then will come from that fund to be paid to the state of Ohio that administers this fund. FYI, it was a good, interesting reminder that the origination of these funds are not from, what you might otherwise think, police and fire levy, but from our tax collections that, and specifically our charter, I believe it's Article 9, calls for 0.3 mils to be contributed to 0.3 mils for Moreland Hills to take from that collection and contribute to the pension fund for them. So that's the source to the general fund, FYI, before it then goes to the fund and then from the fund to the state. And with that, I'm happy to first make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Vincent, second by Mr. Young. Sherry?
Mr. Everman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes,
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
and I move for passage.
Okay, we have a motion to pass by Mr. Richmond, second by Mr. Vincent.
Mr. Everman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, council. The third and final ordinance this evening is 2024-33. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute and deliver a subdivision participation and release form to settle the village's claims and participate in a settlement agreement against Kroger Company in the national opiate prescription litigation and declaring an emergency. That's a mouthful. That is going to be presented this evening by Mr. Fish.
You want to walk out or I just don't talk?
It's really not involved Walgreens.
Oh, okay.
We
Well,
did
then,
separate legislation last year.
Yeah. It's
And
mentioned there
Walgreens.
because.
Oh, okay.
It's based into the sort of announcement that they send out. It's hard to, but they're really not involved.
well, she didn't work for
Okay.
I went ahead and looked up a couple of things just because I was trying to figure out what it was for. So it said the manufacturer's prescription opioid medications overstated the benefits and downplayed the risks of the use of the opioids and aggressively marketed. So that's the bulk of it. It says 3 key distributors will pay 21 billion over 18 years. Johnson & Johnson will pay 5 billion over the next 9 years. The other thing I thought was interesting is the United States makes up 4.4% of the world's population, but consumes over 80% of the world's opioids. And according to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, Alabama ranks highest in the nation for having more opioid prescriptions than it does people. So my goodness. Obviously, a fairly large problem. Okay, so with that, I would ask to suspend the rules, make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Okay, we have motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Fish, seconded by Mr. Richmond. Sherry?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mr. Yaki,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
All right, and then make a motion to authorize the mayor to execute and deliver the subdivision participation and release form. Or something.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to the second by the same parties. Yes. Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish,
Yes.
Mr. Yaki,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That concludes ordinances and resolutions. So the next on our agenda as normal is miscellaneous business. For anyone in council, I see a couple of hands going on. I'll start with our council president.
Thank you. To follow up on what Councilman Vincent said regarding follow up with Chief Neutzel. Todd, I'll reach out to you in the coming week or so and see if we can pin down some dates and times and see if we can, get everyone in to have it, that wants to have an opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Vincent, did you have
I had a quick question, I guess, on both email and email. There's one that came out a couple of weeks ago that I was wondering if it affects us at all about all the Supreme Court rulings U.S. Supreme Court rulings. They came out maybe 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And there were a couple that I don't know whether there'll be a trickle down effect, so I was just gonna ask the law director if that was being looked at, or if we're gonna be looking at that, or if that just kind of, we'll know when we see it, or, how does that all work? I mean, I know that's kind of removed from us, but I would imagine it's something, the Chevron one, I think was one that was like, that has large implications. I don't know that it really affects us that much, probably doesn't, but that was one where it kind of removes some authority that municipalities ultimately might have to do certain things or choose certain, like that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Okay. So I don't know if there's any discussions on that or if it's just, don't worry about it. It's way up here at the federal level and
I wouldn't necessarily say don't worry about it, but I think there's some, that case in and of itself is a fundamental kind of earth-changing shift in the court's viewpoint toward administrative expertise.
Right.
And interpretations in the absence of explicit statutory language. But I don't have anything canned on sort of like, the impact upon a higher local government of these changes. I don't know that most of them directly impact sort of municipal operations. But to your point, I think that there will be, from these decisions, others previously and others to come, changes. I mean, the law and the court's interpretation of the Constitution is in a process of sort of more rapid change than it always changes over time. Right now, it's changing a little bit more quickly. And so, who knows what may come up in terms of changes in the employment law context, environmental law could change. Experts here that are more versed in that than I am, but I think that there could be impacts of all of these decisions on Moreland Hills and other municipalities. And I'm going to be at a conference in Columbus later this month with the Ohio Municipal Attorneys Association, and I'll see if there's anything sort of in existence so far that tries to put that in perspective. And if so, I'll bring that back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richmond. You also had your hand up.
Thank you. I was just gonna add on the line. This Saturday is President Garfield bobblehead day at the county campus. I'm gonna represent and be.
I can't.
Nice, very nice.
What time's the game?
It's, I believe it's 7:00 or 7:05, something.
First 1,000, isn't it?
First 1,000, good,
Yeah,
right.
I already got a call on somebody to put some slack.
Wow, that's pretty, that's pretty interesting. It'd be nice to have one at the village hall.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for that, Mr. Richmond. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to bring up tonight? Okay, well, thank you. I would entertain a motion to adjourn then if someone.
So moved. Motion adjourned.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Council President, seconded by Councilman Fish. Call the roll.
Mr. Everman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mr. Yaki.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chief and Mr. Water.
Yeah, going with the family.
And everyone, and Mr. Clausick.